Right then, shall we get going?
Sounds like a plan.
Let's do this. Thought it would be good to get everybody a minute just to get logged in. So, welcome everyone. Hello to our first MythBusters live stream. Good afternoon. I'm here with the lovely Alina Cooper, and we're going to be tackling today the myth of, does more leads actually mean more sales? Where we're going to counter that a bit with, we think maybe quality over quantity is better. So we'll have a few conversations around that as much as we can in 10 minutes, won't we, Alina? We've got lots of points to cover off today.
Indeed.
But just a bit of housekeeping. So this is going to be on every week at 12 p.m. on a Thursday. So keep an eye out on LinkedIn and our socials, where we'll be discussing what topics are going to be coming up. You can make your vote on what you want to see for the next week. And don't hesitate to ask questions during the live, or even if you're watching on demand, just get in touch with us directly and we'll look to tackle those either live or afterwards with you. So I'm going to pass over to Alina to introduce herself, and then I'll do the same and we'll go from there.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction there, Jess. So welcome, guys. We're really excited to have you here with us today. We are going to be tackling, as Jessica's mentioned, everything around leads and really busting some myths and hopefully giving you some practical tips to take away. But before we get in, very brief intro. For those who don't know me, my name's Alina. I have been in the leisure industry for over 20 years. And currently I am the managing director and co-founder of Get Set Go Group Limited. And I'm also have a consultancy company. I work with Studio Grow, and I am the director of Start Your Studio Profitably. And I work with thousands of studios globally to help them open their business profitably and then maintain profitability and grow thereafter. Over to you, Jess.
That's a great introduction to yourself. Right, so I'm Jess. I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Kooks. So I work with lots of facility owners on managing their facility through the Kooks software. So it encompasses everything that your business needs to essentially manage it day to day, hopefully give you time back to either coach on the floor or step away from the business. But it includes everything from lead management, member management, and general administration that you might need, and automations to run your facility. So you know, this partnership works very, very well in terms of how we discuss building those foundations within your software platforms, and then how you continue to nurture members and leads and processes throughout that with Studio Grow and the other businesses that Alina works with as well. So, Mythbuster today. Leads. I think, if it's okay with you, Alina, I really want to start with the basics, because it doesn't surprise me how many people come on board to either, you know, Get Set Go Studio Grow or Kooks, and they don't really know where to start with actually how to capture the leads, or the process in which leads can come through to the business. So the sort of basics that I wanted to really touch on in terms of leads was, you could be burning them before they even come through, because there's nowhere for them to get in touch with you. So if you've got a website that has links that are broken, or it goes to an email that's not monitored, or they're signing up for something that no longer exists, you're already reducing the quality of the sort of experience of the lead to become a member, but also struggling to get those people in to have the conversation. But then if you haven't gone from the next step, which is, you know, having your contact details, basic stuff on Google, your website even, then how do they get in touch with you? How do they contact you? And if you have got a contact number that you never answer, how are they going to become a quality lead and a member at your facility? It's the basics that I think people don't start with that cause the initial block of getting the leads in the first place. And then you come on to how you nurture them, how you can utilize automations and different processes to take a little bit of the pain away in terms of time of you getting through to all of them, you know, but actually converting them, maybe not even just by picking up the phone every time. Do you have automations in place, which I know is a point that you want to cover off, Alina, in terms of that kind of strategy once they've got through the door? But I think it's so important to make sure that you have no barriers in place and an open, easy process for the lead to tell you they want to come and have a chat with you and be part of your facility.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you covered that to start with, Jess, because it's something that is so simple, but you see it so often. And I think as well, one thing to caveat here is, obviously we're talking about today the myths around more leads, more sales, but if you don't have a clear strategy, if you don't have the processes in place, you don't have those basic fundamentals set up to start with, there's no point in spending money on lead generation because you're
100%.
losing them and burning them before you even start.
Yeah.
And we see it so often that studio owners and gym owners, they often have no clue how many leads they're generating. They often don't have any idea around their conversion rates, etc. And I think for me as well, as part of those basics, one thing to add as well is know your numbers. Know what your targets are each month. Make sure you have a budget in place. And if you haven't, go away and do that first.
100%.
Because there's no point in just throwing money at sales and marketing if you don't have the processes in place and if you don't know what your goals are. So I think for us, the first thing is get the basics right. Have a budget, understand your targets, have a marketing strategy, make sure your mobile number works, your email works, your website's on point.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have those basics, then you can start really digging into how you nurture those leads. And to nurture those leads, you need to understand those numbers again, because you want to be able to see improvements. Because let's say you've got 10 leads. If you don't know what your conversion rates are, what your lead to sale ratios are, and you don't know how many people you need in the funnel, and you don't even know what your sales target is, then how can you measure your success and how can you go about improving each week, each month, day on day, the results you're getting and tracking them?
Yeah.
So for me, I think there's a number of elements to this, but what I'd specifically like to talk about is hopefully giving people some skills today and some tips around how they nurture their leads better and how they increase those conversion rates. Because the industry averages for lead to sale ratio are dismal. We're talking like 10 to 15% if you're lucky.
I know.
Whereas the clients we're working with, we are targeting them and working with them in excess of 40%. And imagine the difference that makes. Instead of having to filter all those leads in at the funnel and spend more and more money on marketing, if you just work smarter and put the processes in place, you don't need as many leads. You don't need to spend as much money. You just have to look after them better.
100%. Yep. I think the scary thing is that people keep pushing money into the marketing, that front end side of it. Maybe it's that the ad didn't work. Maybe we're not pushing out the right product, and that could be part of it. But if you haven't got the process in the background, the nurturing, the conversion, the understanding, and that journey that you're taking them on, then it might not even be that front end part of the funnel anyway. It's probably the processes in the background. And I think people are so excited to get that marketing side done, the exciting content creation, that they don't think, well, actually what I need in place before that goes out is all of that process and automation in the background, so that it does work and it does manage itself and it feeds into our KPIs and metrics to understand what worked and what didn't. So I completely agree, and I hope that is a takeaway for a few people that are on this live or watching it back, that it's not just about what goes out, it's about what happens when they come in. It's the whole process.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. I was just going to say, I think a lot of people underestimate as well how many points of contact each lead needs as well.
Yes.
Generally we're seeing kind of in excess of 12 to 14 points of contact before someone makes a purchase.
Yep.
So it's really important that we've got those systems in place, and that can't all be manual touch points. It's got to be a combination of those automations plus manual.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about those automations, because we keep coming to this and, it's come up several times today.
Yeah.
So obviously with Kooks, you guys have incredible software in the back end, allowing clients to set up those automations. So when a lead comes in, they automatically get a series of points of contact, and you can build that out. And that's really important. And for those that haven't done this before, it's about building out some really clear client communications that are relevant to the point they are at in that point of sale process. So it's a brand new lead, it's having a new welcome lead nurture sequence. And that sequence has to be designed to get them to take the next action. So in your business, that might be for them to book an intro pack or a trial, or however you manage that process of intake. And it's there to really nurture them through that with those combined manual touch points as well. So those phone calls, those physical conversations. You need to have if you've got an intro pack or a trial sequence, you need to make sure you've got those automations then in place to nurture that person, to make sure they get the most out of their trial, they make sure they then convert to a member thereafter. And then you also need your new client journey. And we always talk about having a minimum 90-day client journey. So that new client is having key touch points with you and your business throughout. And it's not just about selling to them. It's about providing them really useful, insightful content. It's about sharing and getting to them to know your brand and know who you are.
100%. Yeah, I think, to your point about automations, to stick with that before, because we're already going to go over 10 minutes, Alina, I can see it now. We'll try our best to wrap it up, but I think my experience with a lot of facility owners is that automations, for some, I don't know if scare them is the right word, but it really puts them off using them. Automations don't have to take over the whole process. It still can have that personal touch. And to your point, through Kooks, you can make them personalized. It's not a blanket email that just looks the same for everybody. You can customize it by using their information. But the point is using the automations to help, to support the process, to add to the personal touch, so that when they do get that phone call, they've already had a few touch points. Because exactly to your point, it's up, like I used to work on up to 15 touch points in all my years in sales. 15 touch points, and to do that manually is so much work, it's so much time. And if you know that a process works, or you can just tweak one part of that process in a system, how much easier is that than trying to change your sales pitch all the time? But I completely agree with everything you've said. I think it's about looking at the whole journey, not just from when they've become a lead. When they then convert to a member, look after them, because that first 90 days is so important to ensure that you then keep them as an ongoing member. Because if you don't look after them, then that conversion, it might be there at the front, but on the back end, your member conversion and your member retention is also going to suffer. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's a point to add is, if your software doesn't have this functionality, then it's probably not the right software for your business. And obviously, Jessica's here from Kooks. There's lots of software providers out there that do have such functionality.
Yeah.
And it is really important in the modern world now to embrace these types of tools, to embrace AI, and to really look at how you can optimize your time and become more efficient, and also provide a better level of service and experience for your clients.
Yeah. And I think the journey doesn't just go through to your leads and members. It's also about your journey between systems, because so many people that come over to a software like Kooks are using up to 5 or 6 different pieces of software. And if you've got one workflow for leads in one system and then your member workflow in another, and they don't talk to each other, there's a massive gap in that journey. So it's about how you can utilize everything in one, not necessarily in Kooks. Obviously great, have a chat with us if you want to. But what I'm saying is, a takeaway for you now, think about how you're using those different pieces of software. Do they talk to each other? Do the workflows actually sync up? And are you getting the leads in the right way from the get-go, not just then how you nurture them moving forward?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, actually, Jess, in the sense that a lot of people don't actually realize until they write it down what their tech stack looks like.
Yeah.
And when you start diving into that, you suddenly realize how much you're spending and how many different pieces of software you're trying to use across your business. And we certainly did with Get Set Go. And we're in the process of refining ours. And, that's something that, this isn't something you do once. This is something you continually evolve based on how you see it's working.
Yeah.
And actually, if you can amalgamate several different pieces of tech, not only are you providing a better experience, but you're also probably going to be saving yourself a fair bit of money off your bottom line as well there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, depending on how many pieces of software you've got, people that come over to Kooks can save anything from 200 to upwards of £1,000, depending on what they're using and the services they have with it. So definitely consolidating software would help with managing the workflows, automations, and the journey for your leads to your members, and for you and your staff doing the manual side of it as well. 100%. Yeah. Oh, we could go on for hours, couldn't we? We really could.
We started a few minutes late, so why don't we just touch on a couple of other points and just run through a few things. So I think we've pretty much covered kind of the nurturing strategies, the automations, that side of things, the personalization of that content.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing I have to add there is, this is a multi-channel approach. This isn't just bombarding people with emails. This is emails, this is telephone calls, this is text.
Yep.
And all of those things, bar the telephone calls, can be automated. Well, telephone call could be, but wouldn't recommend that side of things.
No, but you can notify of the telephone call.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's about creating that multi-channel nurturing approach.
Yep.
I think the next side of things is around improving your lead management processes as well. So it's how you use your CRM system. And firstly, are you using a CRM system? How are you tracking how many leads come into your business on every day, week, and month? How are you then tracking how many of those convert?
Yep.
And for me, what I work with a lot of clients on is really looking at that lead conversion piece and how we can improve it. Because why spend more money if we can just improve the way in which we convert them?
Yeah.
And I think one thing that often people don't have in place is a really clear flow of what they want to be saying and how they want to be communicating with their clients, which ties in with the automations again. But
yeah,
actually role playing, training your teams, thinking about and writing scripts for them. So you are optimizing the sales process there.
yeah,
And it's really basic stuff. It's about making sure you're using the right language, you're presenting the product in the right way, because actually you'll find a lot of the time that a client would have converted if you had presented the information in the correct way and closed that sale.
yeah,
So I think it's focusing on those pieces as well, and really looking at how you can train the people within your business who are going to be taking those calls, who are going to be sending those emails, who are going to be dealing with those walk-ins, because you want to make sure that you are converting at the highest possible rate.
yeah, 100%. And I think to your point as well, this is kind of trailing off a little bit, but make the product simple. There are so many people that I have spoken with that have come over to Kooks, and they want to import 6 different types of memberships or more with all different offerings and all different prices, and it's confusing. So if your actual message is confusing, then it's confusing for the lead, the potential member, the staff trying to sell it. It's about simplifying the process, not just through automations and the nurture side of it, but that front end. What are you selling? How simple is it to understand what I would be buying, and how easy is it for me to buy the product? And that does tie into then getting a better quality of leads, because they understand what they want what you're offering, and they want to be able to communicate that with you and buy, basically. So it does go through the whole process. And again, it's not just about from that lead point, it's when they can become a member. Does that still make sense? Does the offering suit them? Is it a 6-week trial that we're doing? Is it a 30-day challenge? All of these different ideas that you could have. But also, if you're trying out different things, you can use your KPIs and metrics by having the processes in place to understand which one worked better. What are people more interested in? Actually, people want more of a 6-week kickstart than they do a 30-day challenge, so we're going to push that more, and that's what our product's going to be for the entry of our services, stuff like that. So exactly to Alina's point, to be able to understand it, it needs to be simple, have processes in place, automations to help you and the team, but also train up your team on how they're selling it. Have a unified approach to it so that it's not a different conversation with different people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm conscious of time, Jess. So
Yes,
just to kind
yes.
of wrap up there as well, I think we've talked about quite a few things very quickly today, and I know we'd both love to go into way more detail and to give some really practical tips here. And hopefully we'll be bringing some more extended webinars to you shortly.
Yes.
I think just to kind of recap from what we've said today, first things first, it's about getting the basics right. If you don't have those fundamentals in place, starting with a budget, understanding your numbers, then making sure the tools you're using to drive leads are working, there's no point in spending money. You also have to have a really clear goal in mind. So having that budget and knowing how many members you need to hit, what your net client movement is each month, how many levers you're getting, is all going to help you understand your business more and help drive that growth. And then when it comes to nurturing those leads, it's about having effective lead nurturing strategies in place, improving those lead management processes, training and equipping your team with the skills and tools they need to be able to do that, really focusing on increasing those conversion rates. We've talked about it a lot, but leveraging marketing automations for lead nurturing is absolutely key. Embrace technology. Enhance that lead engagement piece, making sure your sales and marketing align and they're communicating. And I think constantly analyzing and optimizing your results as well is key.
100%.
As a business owner, it's so often forgotten. You have to know your numbers. You should know exactly what your conversion rates are, how many leads you need, how many sales you need, what your targets are each month, and knowing those basics and sharing that with your team will drive success without implementing anything else. So I think we've thrown a lot at you today. If you've got any questions, the videos are going to be posted across all of our social channels, both on Kooks and on The Collective. So do please ask any questions, and don't forget to vote on which topics you would like to see next.
Yes. We look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.